What if I told you that having a girlfriend can make your life healthier, happier, more expensive, and somehow leave you arguing about where to eat for 45 minutes? Welcome to one of the biggest trade-offs almost every young adult faces. Is a relationship a secret life upgrade or just a full-time subscription with emotional updates every week? The truth is far more interesting than the internet's relationships are everything or stay single forever debates. Today, we're breaking down the real pros, the honest cons, the psychology behind both, and the surprisingly funny moments nobody warns you about. So by the end, you'll probably see relationships very differently. Let's start with the part almost everyone agrees on. Life genuinely feels different when you're with the right person. Not because suddenly everything becomes perfect, but because ordinary moments stop feeling so ordinary. Think about it. Watching a terrible movie alone is just wasting 2 hours. Watching the same terrible movie with someone you love somehow becomes a hilarious memory you'll quote for years. Psychologists call this shared emotional experience, and research consistently shows that positive experiences become even more enjoyable when they're shared with someone close. It's one of the simplest but most powerful relationship benefits. Now imagine two friends. Alex is single, and Jake recently started dating. Both have stressful weeks at work. Alex gets home, scrolls social media for 2 hours, orders fast food, and goes to bed still feeling mentally exhausted. Jake gets home, complains about his boss for 5 minutes. His girlfriend laughs, tells him his boss probably still uses Internet Explorer. They both laugh, cook dinner together, and somehow the day feels lighter. Did the problems disappear? Not at all. But emotional support changes how your brain processes stress. In fact, relationship researcher Dr. John Gottman, who has spent decades studying couples, found that healthy relationships aren't built on grand romantic gestures. They're built on tiny daily moments. Small conversations, shared jokes, paying attention, and simply showing up. Those little moments are surprisingly powerful. Another underrated advantage? Your comfort zone quietly expands. Maybe you've never tried sushi because it looked suspicious. Then your girlfriend convinces you to try it, and suddenly you're debating which restaurant has the best salmon rolls. Maybe she'd never go hiking, but now she's standing on top of a mountain wondering why she waited so long. Good relationships often introduce both people to better habits, new hobbies, and different perspectives they would have never discovered alone. And then there's accountability, the kind nobody talks about enough. You're more likely to keep promises when another person is involved. You might actually clean your apartment before she visits. You finally schedule that dentist appointment you've postponed for 8 months. You stop wearing that hoodie that should honestly qualify as an archaeological artifact. Suddenly, you're not just living for yourself anymore, and that subtle shift can improve everything from your health to your career. Of course, not every relationship creates these benefits. The key word is healthy. The wrong relationship can produce the exact opposite effect. So how do you tell the difference before it's too late? That's where things get interesting. Now let's flip the coin, because every advantage comes with a receipt. Having a girlfriend isn't just adding love to your life. You're also adding another schedule, another personality, another set of expectations, and yes, another opinion about where you should eat tonight. Relationships don't magically remove problems. Sometimes they simply replace your old problems with new, more interesting ones. Take Ben and Ryan. Both get invited on a last-minute weekend road trip with their friends. Ryan says, "I'm in," throws a backpack into his car, and leaves in 20 minutes. Ben's situation is different. He already promised his girlfriend they'd spend Saturday together because he canceled last weekend. Neither choice is wrong, but relationships naturally reduce spontaneity. Freedom becomes negotiation, and surprisingly, that's not always a bad thing. The question is whether both people respect each other's lives outside the relationship. Then there's communication, the world's most underrated life skill. Imagine this scenario. She says, "It's fine." You hear, "Everything's okay." Experienced couples hear, "Congratulations, you've unlocked a side quest." It's funny because almost everyone has lived through some version of this. According to Dr. John Gottman's research, the happiest couples don't avoid conflict. They simply become much better at repairing misunderstandings before they grow into unnecessary drama. Money is another plot twist nobody mentions enough. Dating in 2026 isn't cheap. Coffee turns into dinner, dinner turns into birthdays, birthdays become trips, and suddenly your budgeting app starts sending you concerned notifications. But here's the interesting part. Studies in behavioral economics suggest people often spend more intentionally when planning experiences with someone they care about. In other words, not all spending is wasteful. It depends on whether you're buying temporary excitement or lasting memories. Privacy also changes in subtle ways. Before dating, your phone battery was your biggest concern. Now someone notices you were online 3 hours ago, but somehow replied with, "Sorry, I just saw this." Welcome to modern relationships, where read receipts have accidentally become emotional evidence. Technology has made staying connected easier than ever, but it has also created expectations that previous generations never had to deal with. And perhaps the biggest challenge of all is balance. Some people slowly disappear into their relationship. Friends stop hearing from them. Hobbies collect dust. Their personality quietly becomes someone's boyfriend. Meanwhile, others protect their independence so aggressively that their partner feels like an optional app instead of an important part of their life. Finding the middle ground is harder than most people expect, and that's exactly where the biggest relationship lessons begin. So, after all of this, who's actually winning? The guy with a girlfriend or the guy who's single? Surprisingly, that's the wrong question. A better question is this: what kind of relationship are we talking about? Because a healthy relationship and an unhealthy one have almost nothing in common except the title. Picture two couples. Couple A posts perfect vacation photos every weekend. Matching outfits, romantic captions, smiling in every picture. Behind the scenes, they argue constantly, avoid difficult conversations, and secretly feel exhausted. Couple B barely posts anything. They tease each other, solve problems together, respect each other's space, and genuinely enjoy being around one another. Which relationship would you rather have? Social media makes this answer look obvious, but real life often doesn't. The ancient philosopher Aristotle believed that good relationships help people become better versions of themselves. More than 2,000 years later, that idea still holds up surprisingly well. Ask yourself one simple question. After spending time with this person, do I usually feel more motivated, more peaceful, and more like myself, or less? That answer reveals more than 100 relationship quizzes ever could. Here's another interesting reality. The honeymoon phase doesn't last forever, and that's completely normal. Neuroscientists have found that the intense excitement of early romance naturally settles over time. Some people panic and think they've fallen out of love, when in reality, they're simply transitioning into something calmer and often more stable. Butterflies are exciting, but trust is what keeps relationships alive when life gets stressful. And here's a funny challenge almost every couple eventually faces: assembling furniture together. Somehow a simple bookshelf can become a personality test. One person refuses to read the instructions. The other insists step 7 exists for a reason. And suddenly the screwdriver has become a symbol of emotional conflict. Yet these tiny moments often teach patience, teamwork, and compromise far better than any motivational quote ever could. At the end of the day, having a girlfriend isn't automatically a life upgrade, and being single isn't automatically a disadvantage. The real advantage comes from choosing someone who adds value instead of unnecessary chaos, and being the kind of person who does the same in return. A relationship shouldn't rescue your life, replace your identity, or become your entire personality. It should make an already meaningful life even richer. So maybe the biggest pro isn't having someone who always agrees with you. Maybe it's having someone who challenges you, laughs with you, calls you out when you're wrong, celebrates your wins as if they're their own, and still chooses to sit next to you after you've spent 20 minutes insisting you definitely didn't need the instruction manual. That's when a relationship stops being just a relationship and starts becoming a genuinely great partnership. So, are girlfriends a blessing or a burden? The honest answer is they can be either. The relationship itself isn't the magic. The people inside it are. The right partner can make ordinary days unforgettable, while the wrong one can make even great days exhausting. Choose wisely, communicate honestly, keep your own identity, and remember, love isn't about finding perfection. It's about building something worth sharing. And now we're curious, which side of this debate do you agree with most? Let us know in the comments.